Katie Morgan was terrible at paying attention in class. Not because she was a bad student, she actually got decent grades, but because once Mrs. Patterson started going on about quadratic equations or chemical bonds, Katie's mind would just drift away. And when her mind drifted, her pencil started moving. Dragons. That's what she always drew. Not the cute cartoon kind, but massive, detailed creatures with scales that caught imaginary light, wings that looked like they could actually lift something that heavy, and eyes that seemed almost alive on the page. She'd been doing it since middle school. Her notebooks were full of them. Some teachers got annoyed, but most just let it slide as long as she wasn't disrupting class. It was a normal Tuesday afternoon. Katie was in geometry class, supposedly learning about angles, but really she was working on a new dragon in the corner of her homework. This one was different. She'd given it these crystalline scales that looked like blue ice, and a crown of silver horns that curved back from its head. She even added little details to its wings, making them look almost transparent. She was actually pretty proud of this one. Lunch period started at noon. Katie was sitting with her friends Ashley and Tyler near the windows of the cafeteria when someone screamed. Not the playful kind of scream, the real kind that makes your blood go cold. Everyone turned to look outside. At first, Katie thought it was a plane or maybe some kind of promotional stunt. But as the shape got closer, descending toward the soccer field, her brain refused to process what her eyes were seeing. It was a dragon. A real, actual, massive dragon. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Students were running, screaming, pulling out their phones. Teachers were yelling for everyone to stay calm, which obviously wasn't working. Tyler grabbed Katie's arm, trying to pull her toward the emergency exit, but she couldn't move. She just stood there, staring. Because she knew that dragon. The crystalline blue scales. The silver horns curving back in that exact pattern. The transparent quality to the wings that made them shimmer in the afternoon sun. She had drawn this exact dragon less than an hour ago. Katie, come on. Ashley was shouting, but her voice sounded far away. The dragon landed on the soccer field with a ground-shaking thud that Katie could feel through the floor. It was the size of a small plane, maybe bigger. Its wings folded against its sides, and then it just sat there. Like it was waiting for something. Outside, Katie could hear sirens. Lots of them. Within minutes, police cars surrounded the school. Then military vehicles. Helicopters started circling overhead. News vans pulled up on every street corner. But the dragon didn't move. It just sat there on the soccer field, perfectly still, its massive head turned toward the school building. Toward the cafeteria window. Toward Katie. "Oh my God," Katie whispered. Her hands were shaking. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her geometry homework, the one with the dragon sketch. It was still there, but something felt wrong. She started flipping through her other notebooks, the ones she always carried. 3 drawings were missing. Not ripped out, just gone, like they'd never existed. One was the crystal dragon she'd drawn 2 weeks ago during English class. Another was the smoke black dragon from last month's history notes. The third was the golden one she'd sketched during study hall just last Friday. Katie pulled out her phone with trembling hands and opened the news app. The first headline made her stomach drop. Breaking, giant creature appears in Tokyo, Japan, authorities baffled. She clicked on it. The photo showed a smoke black dragon perched on top of a skyscraper, identical to one of her missing drawings. She scrolled down. Another alert, Berlin evacuated as massive winged beast lands near Brandenburg Gate. The picture showed a golden dragon, wings spread wide, sitting in the middle of a plaza. One more, Sao Paulo in lockdown, unknown creature spotted downtown. Katie's phone slipped from her hands and clattered on the floor. 4 dragons. 4 of her drawings. All appearing in real life at the exact same time. "Everyone, this way," a teacher was shouting. "Emergency evacuation protocols." The students started filing out, but Katie couldn't take her eyes off the dragon outside. It was still staring at her through the glass, its huge eyes, the same eyes she'd carefully drawn with her number 2 pencil, locked onto hers. There was intelligence there. Recognition. Like it knew who she was. Like it knew she had created it. Men in black suits and military uniforms started entering the school. Katie could hear radios crackling, urgent voices giving orders. Someone mentioned bringing in specialists. Someone else said something about securing the area and finding anyone who might have information. And then one of the men pointed directly at Katie through the cafeteria window. They were coming for her. Katie spent the next 6 hours in what they told her was a secure location. It looked more like an underground bunker, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, and no windows. The men in suits had been polite but firm. They weren't arresting her, they said. They just needed to ask some questions. About the dragons. About her drawings. She told them everything. Showed them her notebooks, explained how she'd been doodling dragons since she was 12, how she never thought anything of it. They took photographs of every sketch, scanned every page, asked her to describe exactly what she was thinking when she drew each one. And then everything changed. A woman in a white lab coat entered the room. She was maybe 40, with tired eyes and gray streaks in her brown hair. She introduced herself as Dr. Rebecca Hayes, and she didn't look like someone who scared easily. But when she looked at Katie, there was definitely fear there. "Katie," Dr. Hayes said, sitting down across from her. "I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. What you're experiencing, what you've done, it's not just unusual. It's supposed to be impossible." Katie's throat felt tight. "I don't understand. I just drew some pictures." "I know." Dr. Hayes pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Katie. The screen showed what looked like a video feed from space, stars, distant planets, and something else. A massive structure, like a ring made of 1,000 different ships, all connected together. "This is the Galactic Council. Right now, 10,000 different alien species are in emergency session. Because of your dragons." Katie stared at the screen. "Aliens are real. Very real. And they've been watching Earth for a long time." Dr. Hayes swiped to another image. It showed what looked like ancient artwork, cave paintings, medieval tapestries, old manuscripts. All of them featured dragons. Dragons aren't just mythology, Katie. 3 million years ago, they existed. Real, physical creatures that could bend reality itself. They nearly destroyed half the galaxy before they vanished. Every advanced civilization in the universe knows about them. They're in everyone's history books as a warning. "But I just drew them. How could that?" "That's what terrifies them," Dr. Hayes interrupted gently. "Dragons can only be created by something called an architect. A being capable of manifesting thoughts into physical matter. Architects were thought to be extinct. Until today, when 4 dragons appeared simultaneously across Earth. Dragons that match your drawings exactly." Katie felt like the room was spinning. "So you're saying I'm some kind of, what? Reality warper?" "We don't know yet. But the Galactic Council does. And they're not happy about it." Dr. Hayes pulled up another video. This one showed the massive ring structure again, but now there were lights flashing, ships moving in organized patterns. "That's a military formation. They're debating whether Earth represents an existential threat to the galaxy." "Threat? I'm 17. I just draw dragons because I get bored in class." "I know. But think about it from their perspective. If one human teenager can accidentally create reality-bending monsters, what happens when others figure it out? What happens if someone does it on purpose? With bad intentions?" Before Katie could respond, the lights in the room flickered. Then they went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. "Dr. Hayes?" Katie's voice came out as barely a whisper. The doctor was staring at her tablet, her face pale in the red glow. "They're here. The council sent an emissary." They rushed Katie upstairs, or at least she thought it was upstairs. She'd lost track of where they were. When they finally emerged into what looked like some kind of observation deck, Katie's breath caught in her throat. Floating above the facility was something impossible. It looked like a being made of pure light, constantly shifting colors, blue to purple to gold and back again. It had no solid form, just energy contained in a vaguely humanoid shape. Around it, military jets kept their distance, circling but not approaching. "That's Vorin," Dr. Hayes explained. "One of the oldest species in the galaxy. They exist as pure consciousness, no physical body. The council sent him because he can't be harmed by anything physical. Just in case you or your dragons are hostile." A voice filled the room, not through speakers, but somehow directly in Katie's head. It didn't sound male or female, young or old. It just was. "Human child. I am Vorin of the council. I have come to assess the threat you pose to the galaxy." Katie's legs felt weak. "I'm not a threat. I didn't mean to create anything. I didn't even know I could." "Ignorance is not innocence. Your species has been quarantined for 50,000 years. Do you know why?" Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "We've always assumed it was for our protection. That humanity wasn't ready for contact." "No." Vorin's light pulsed brighter, more intense. "It was for our protection. From you." Katie felt like she'd been punched. What are you talking about? Every intelligent species in the galaxy processes memories during sleep. Except humans. Humans dream. True dreams. You create entire worlds, entire realities in your minds every night. Most species cannot even comprehend this. It is dangerous. Dreaming is dangerous. Katie couldn't believe what she was hearing. When combined with emotion, with will, with desire, yes. You are the only species capable of becoming architects. The only ones who can make imagination real. This is why Earth was sealed away. This is why you were never contacted. And now, the seal has broken. From within. Dr. Hayes grabbed Katie's shoulder. How long do we have? The Council debates now. If Earth cannot prove it can control this power, they will vote to neutralize the threat. Permanently. Katie's heart was pounding. What does that mean? Neutralize? Voron's form shifted, dimming slightly. It means, young architect, that you have 48 hours to prove your species deserves to survive. Or the Council will erase Earth from existence. 48 hours. That's all Katie had to somehow prove that humanity wasn't going to accidentally destroy the galaxy. No pressure or anything. They set her up in a special observation room, basically a big empty space with cameras everywhere and thick reinforced walls. Dr. Hayes explained it was designed to contain anomalous events, which Katie figured was a fancy way of saying, in case she accidentally created something that wanted to eat people. Just try to do what you did before, Dr. Hayes said through the intercom. She was watching from behind protective glass along with about 20 other scientists and military personnel. Draw something. Anything. Katie sat at the metal table with a fresh notebook and her favorite mechanical pencil. Her hands were shaking. She pressed the pencil to paper and started sketching. A simple dragon this time, nothing too elaborate. Just wings, scales, basic shape. Nothing happened. She tried again. Added more details, shaded the wings, drew careful lines for each scale. Still nothing. The drawing just sat there on the page, completely normal, completely not alive. I don't understand, Katie said, frustration creeping into her voice. It worked before. Why isn't it working now? Dr. Hayes was consulting with someone, their voices muffled through the glass. After a moment, she spoke into the intercom again. Katie, think back. When you drew the dragons that appeared, what were you feeling? What were you thinking about? Katie closed her eyes, trying to remember. I was bored, I guess? Mrs. Patterson was talking about equations, and I just wanted to be anywhere else. I was thinking about freedom. About flying away from all the boring stuff. About something powerful and beautiful that didn't have to sit in a classroom and pretend to care about math. Try again, Dr. Hayes said softly. But this time, don't just draw. Feel it. Katie opened her eyes and looked at the blank page. She thought about those moments in class when the world felt too small, too predictable, too controlled. She thought about wanting something more, something wild and impossible. Her pencil moved across the paper, but this time she wasn't thinking about the drawing itself. She was thinking about escape, about wonder, about magic being real. The pencil felt warm in her hand. She kept drawing, pouring all that longing into the lines. A small dragon, no bigger than a cat. Delicate wings, curious eyes, scales that caught light like gemstones. She drew it the way she'd want a friend to be, loyal, protective, beautiful. The air in the room began to shimmer. Katie looked up from her drawing, and her breath caught. Floating in the air about 3 feet in front of her was a sphere of light, growing brighter by the second. It pulsed with energy, warm and alive. Then, in a flash that made everyone behind the glass shield their eyes, the light exploded outward. When Katie could see again, there was a dragon sitting on the table. It was real. Solid. Breathing. Its scales were deep emerald green with flecks of gold, exactly as she'd drawn them. It tilted its head, looking at her with intelligent amber eyes, and made a sound. Not quite a purr, not quite a chirp, but something in between. Behind the glass, people were shouting, equipment was beeping, and someone was definitely screaming. But Katie couldn't look away from the dragon. Slowly, carefully, she reached out her hand. The dragon leaned forward and pressed its snout against her palm. It was warm. Real. Alive. And then something even stranger happened. She heard a voice, not with her ears, but in her mind. Clear as day. Hello, Creator. I have been waiting for you. Katie jerked her hand back. Can you talk? In a manner of speaking. We communicate through thought, through intention. Just as you brought me into being through will and imagination. The small dragon stretched its wings. You may call me Spark, if you wish. I am yours, as all dragons are bound to their architect. The other dragons, the big ones outside. Your first creations, yes. Though you made them unconsciously, without understanding what you were doing. My elder sibling, the one you humans have been calling the Crystal Dragon, has been waiting very patiently for you to acknowledge the bond. Dr. Hayes's voice came through the intercom, shaky but amazed. Katie, we're reading telepathic wavelengths. You're communicating with it. Can you ask what dragons actually are? Katie looked at Spark. The dragon's eyes seemed to smile. We are not creatures of flesh and bone as you understand them, Spark explained. We are manifestations of protective imagination. When architects create us, they are reaching into the space between thought and reality, giving form to their need for guardians, for companions, for power that cannot be controlled by others. We existed long ago, when the first architects walked the stars. We defended them, protected them, fought for them. And then what happened? Vorin said dragons nearly destroyed the galaxy. Spark's expression grew sad. Some architects created us from fear instead of love. From rage instead of hope. Those dragons became twisted, destructive. They fed on negative emotions and grew beyond even their creator's control. It took the combined might of 10,000 worlds to seal them away. And when the last architect died, we faded from reality. Until you. There was a commotion behind the glass. Vorin had appeared, his form of pure light filling the observation area. His voice resonated in everyone's minds. The child has manifested again. This confirms she is a true architect. Katie stood up, feeling braver with Spark beside her. Then you know I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Intention is irrelevant. Your species numbers 8 billion. If even a fraction developed this ability, the consequences would be catastrophic. Already, our senses detect 17 other humans showing early signs of awakening. The seal on your world is broken. The council's vote approaches. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. What if we could prove that humans can control this responsibly? That we can use it for good? In 48 hours? Impossible. Katie felt Spark's presence in her mind, warm and encouraging. An idea was forming. Crazy, probably impossible, but it was all she had. What if I could teach others? Katie said. Show them how to create things that help instead of destroy? Prove that human imagination doesn't have to be dangerous. Vorin's light pulsed, considering. You would need to succeed perfectly. One mistake, one dangerous creation, and the council will act. Katie looked at Spark, then at Dr. Hayes, then back at the being of pure light who held her world's fate in his non-existent hands. Then I guess I better not make any mistakes. They had 36 hours left. Dr. Hayes worked fast, pulling together a team of psychologists and government agents to screen potential candidates. They needed people who were creative, emotionally stable, and most importantly, showed the early signs Vorin had detected. People whose dreams were starting to bleed into reality in small ways. Katie met the 12 candidates in a larger observation room. They were all around her age, all looking just as confused and terrified as she felt. There was Blake from Texas, a kid who'd apparently been having dreams so vivid that his sketchbook sometimes showed drawings he didn't remember making. Megan from Oregon, who hummed melodies in her sleep that didn't exist in any known music. Trevor from Michigan, whose stories for English class sometimes predicted real events days before they happened. All of them were terrified. All of them were looking at Katie like she had answers. She didn't. Okay, Katie started, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm doing. I figured this out, like, yesterday. But here's what I learned, it's not about the drawing. It's about what you're feeling when you create. She had Spark with her, the small dragon perched on her shoulder like some kind of magical parrot. The other kids stared at it with a mixture of awe and fear. When I made Spark, I wasn't thinking about making a dragon. I was thinking about needing a friend. A protector. Something beautiful in a world that felt too scary and too big. Katie walked among them. So don't try to create something specific. Create from what you need. What you hope for. What you love. Blake went first. He was shaking as he picked up the pencil, but Katie noticed something. He wasn't drawing. He was writing. Words flowed across the page, a story about gardens that floated in the sky and cleaned poison from the air. His hand moved faster and faster, and the air around him started to shimmer just like it had for Katie. When the light faded, there were seeds floating in his palm. Tiny, glowing seeds that pulsed with gentle green light. "Plant one," Katie urged. Blake dropped a seed into a pot of soil they'd prepared. Within seconds, a vine erupted from the dirt, growing at impossible speed. It climbed toward the ceiling, sprouting leaves that literally sparkled, and flowers that released a sweet smell. The air quality monitors in the room started beeping. The oxygen levels had jumped significantly. Dr. Hayes's voice came through the intercom, excited. "The plant is absorbing carbon dioxide at 50 times the normal rate and releasing purified oxygen. Blake, this is incredible." One by one, the others tried. Not all of them succeeded on the first attempt, but when they did, the results were amazing. Megan created these creatures that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. When they moved, they hummed, and Katie realized the hum was actually mathematical equations. Dr. Hayes confirmed that the creatures were solving complex problems just by existing, processing information in ways that computers couldn't. Trevor manifested something that looked like living water. It flowed and moved on its own, and when they tested it, they found it could heal. A scientist deliberately cut his hand, and when the water touched the wound, it sealed up in seconds, perfectly healed. The Galactic Council representatives watched everything. More aliens had arrived, beings of all different shapes and sizes, some in physical form, others like Vorin who were pure energy. They observed silently, taking notes, conferring in languages that made Katie's ears hurt. For a few hours, Katie actually thought they might pull this off. Then her phone rang. It was her mom's number, but when Katie answered, the voice wasn't her mother's. It was a man, cold and clinical. "Katie Morgan. We have your little brother. His name is Tommy, he's 9 years old, and right now he's very scared." Katie's blood went cold. Spark sensed her distress and wrapped his tail around her arm, trying to comfort her. "What do you want?" "You're going to create something for us. A weapon. Something that can take down military targets. You have 1 hour to produce results, or Tommy loses a finger. Every hour after that, he loses another piece." "You can't." "I won't." "You will. Because he's your brother, and we both know what you're capable of." 1 hour, Katie. "We'll be in touch with instructions." The line went dead. Katie stood there, frozen, her phone still pressed to her ear. Dr. Hayes was already mobilizing, shouting orders to trace the call, to find Tommy, to lock down the facility. But Katie barely heard any of it. All she could think about was her little brother. Tommy, who still slept with a nightlight. Who made her laugh with stupid jokes. Who drew stick figure versions of her dragons and taped them to the fridge. Rage built inside her chest like a physical thing, hot and terrible. Fear for Tommy mixed with fury at the people who'd taken him. Her hands clenched into fists, and she felt something dark stirring in her mind, not Spark's gentle presence, but something else. Something angry. "Katie, don't." Spark's voice was urgent in her mind. "Control your emotions. Don't let the fear take over." But it was too late. The air in the room began to darken. Not just dim, actually darken, like shadows were gathering from nowhere. The other kids backed away, sensing danger. Alarms started blaring. Katie looked down at her hands and saw black smoke curling between her fingers. Without meaning to, without even trying, she was creating something. But this wasn't like Spark or the Crystal Dragon. This was something born from terror and rage. A shape began forming in the smoke. Wings, huge and tattered. Eyes that glowed red. Claws that looked like they could tear through steel. "Katie, stop." Dr. Hayes was screaming through the intercom. "You have to stop." But Katie couldn't stop. The shadow dragon was growing, feeding on her fear and anger, becoming more real with every second. It opened its mouth and roared, a sound that shook the entire building. Vorin's voice filled the room, resonating with power. "The architect has lost control. Alert the council. Prepare for immediate containment." The shadow dragon turned its burning red eyes toward Katie, and she realized with horror that she'd created something she couldn't control. Something that might destroy everything she'd been trying to protect. The shadow dragon loomed over Katie, growing larger with every passing second. Its body was made of living darkness, smoke and shadow twisted into the shape of something ancient and terrible. Red eyes blazed with mindless hunger, feeding on Katie's fear like fuel to a fire. Containment protocols failing, someone shouted behind the glass. Military personnel were running, alarms screaming, and Katie could see ships through the windows, alien vessels moving into attack position around the facility. Spark flew in front of Katie, tiny compared to the shadow monster but fearless. Creator, you must calm yourself. This manifestation is born from your negative emotions, it will consume you if you let it. But Katie couldn't calm down. Tommy was out there somewhere, scared and alone, and these people wanted her to create weapons, and the whole galaxy wanted to destroy Earth, and everything was falling apart and it was all her fault. The shadow dragon roared again, and the sound shattered windows. It turned toward the other kids, the ones Katie was supposed to be teaching, and she saw real terror in their eyes. No! Katie screamed. Don't hurt them. The shadow dragon paused. Just for a moment, it hesitated, responding to her command. And in that moment, Katie understood something crucial. It was hers. She had created it. Which meant it was still connected to her, still part of her, still under her control, if she could just figure out how. Dr. Hayes's voice cut through the chaos, clear and urgent. Katie, listen to me. You're an architect. That means you're responsible for everything you create. You can't run from it, you have to accept it. Accept it? How could she accept this monster? But then Katie looked at the shadow dragon, really looked at it. And she realized it wasn't just random destruction. It was her fear made visible. Her rage at the people who took Tommy. Her terror of failing everyone who was counting on her. Her anger at being thrust into this impossible situation. It was all the dark parts of being human, the parts she wanted to ignore, given form and shape. Voron's voice boomed through the facility. Council fleet approaching. Katie Morgan, you have 60 seconds to demonstrate control or we will neutralize all threats. 60 seconds to save the world. Katie closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She stopped fighting the fear, stopped trying to push it away. Instead, she let herself feel it. All of it. The terror and rage and helplessness. She acknowledged that yes, she was scared. Yes, she was angry. And that was okay. That was human. I created you, she said to the shadow dragon, her voice shaking but clear. You're part of me. The scared part. The angry part. And I'm not going to destroy you or pretend you don't exist. The shadow dragon growled, uncertain. Katie opened her eyes and reached into her pocket, pulling out her pencil, the same one she'd used to draw the first dragons. Her hand was steady now. She opened her notebook to a fresh page. But I'm going to change you, she said. Because fear and anger don't have to be destructive. They can be protective. They can be powerful. They can be beautiful. She started drawing, but this time she was drawing what the shadow dragon could become. Not erasing it, not fighting it, transforming it. She drew scales that were black like midnight but caught starlight. Wings that were tattered but strong, battle-worn but unbroken. Eyes that burned red not with mindless hunger, but with fierce protective love. A guardian born from darkness. A defender created from the parts of herself she was afraid of. The shadow dragon began to change. The mindless rage in its eyes cleared, replaced by intelligence. The chaotic smoke solidified into actual scales. It shrank slightly, becoming more controlled, more purposeful. When it looked at Katie again, she saw recognition there. Understanding. I am Ember, a voice said in her mind, deeper than sparks, rougher, but protective. I am your shadow and your shield. Born from fear, but no longer slave to it. Katie felt tears on her cheeks. Can you help me find Tommy? Ember's response was immediate. Show me his face, Creator. Let me feel your love for him. I will track him through the shadows themselves. Katie thought of her brother, his gap-toothed smile, his terrible jokes, the way he always hugged her too tight. Ember's eyes blazed brighter, and suddenly Katie could feel it too, a connection, a thread leading across the city to where Tommy was being held. I know where he is, Ember growled. The facility doors burst open. Not broken, opened. The crystal dragon, Katie's first creation, had been waiting outside this whole time. It lowered its massive head, and Katie understood. It was offering to take her. Dr. Hayes was shouting something about protocols and safety, but Katie was already climbing onto the dragon's back, Spark on her shoulder and Ember flying beside her as living shadow. Council fleet, hold position. Voron's voice commanded. The architect demonstrates control. Let us see what she does next. They found Tommy in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. 5 men with weapons, all of whom looked very surprised when 3 dragons and a 17-year-old girl crashed through the ceiling. Katie didn't need to create weapons. Ember's presence alone, radiating protective fury, made the men drop their guns and run. Tommy was crying but unhurt, and when he saw Katie, he ran into her arms. You came, he sobbed. I knew you'd come. Always, Katie whispered, holding him tight. Always. When they returned to the facility, the Galactic Council was waiting. Hundreds of ships filled the sky, representatives from countless worlds. Vorin floated at the center, his light pulsing with what Katie had learned to recognize as anticipation. Katie stood before them, Tommy at her side, her dragons around her. Spark, the manifestation of hope. Ember, born from fear but transformed into protection. And the Crystal Dragon, her first unconscious creation, patient and powerful. You wanted proof that humans can handle this power, Katie said, her voice carrying across the assembled aliens. Here it is. I created something from my darkest emotions, and instead of letting it destroy me, I accepted it and changed it. Because that's what humans do, we feel everything, the good and the bad, and we choose what to do with it. She looked at the other kids, Blake with his floating gardens, Megan with her singing creatures, Trevor with his healing water. We dream, Katie continued. We imagine. We create from hope and love and yes, sometimes from fear and anger too. But we also take responsibility. We learn. We grow. Maybe that makes us dangerous. But it also makes us something the galaxy has never seen before, architects who understand that power without wisdom is destruction, but power with compassion can change everything. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Then Vorin spoke, his voice resonating through every mind present. The Council has made its decision. The quarantine is lifted. Earth will join the galactic community, with conditions. Katie Morgan will serve as first ambassador and teacher. Other humans who awaken will be trained under her guidance. And the galaxy will watch, with hope, to see what humanity's dreams can build. Katie felt her knees go weak with relief. Tommy cheered. Spark did a happy loop in the air. Even Ember made a sound that might have been approval. Dr. Hayes was crying and laughing at the same time. You did it. You actually did it. But Katie was looking up at the alien ships, at the countless stars beyond them, at the universe that humanity was finally joining. She thought about all the dreams that had never been real before, flying through space, meeting aliens, creating magic with just imagination and will. Spark nuzzled against her cheek. What are you thinking, Creator? Katie smiled, holding Tommy close, her dragons around her like the family she'd accidentally drawn into existence. I'm thinking, she said, that the universe has no idea what it's in for. Because humans don't just dream, we make those dreams come true. And we're just getting started. Above them, her dragons roared in agreement, their voices echoing across the sky like a promise to the stars. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.